Hey, good evening, everyone. This is, guess what? Monday night live with EntreDot here at 7 p.m. But we have a very special guest tonight. Chuck Grigsby, Grigsby CPA, is with us tonight. And we're going to talk about the importance of having really good, well experienced professional advice on accounting and bookkeeping. Keeping you on the right track with respect to your finances and your financials. So Chuck has got a lot of experience, been doing this a long time, and he is very good at what he does. So welcome, Chuck. Glad to see you tonight.
Thank you, Bill. It's good to be here.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself further? People, I think, would be interested in your career and how you got into finance work, being the CPA, and working with a lot of customers on helping them keep their books straight.
Sure. So, as Bill said, my name is Chuck Rigsby. I am the owner of Charles S. Rigsby Jr., CPA, PLLC. It's a very long name.
I didn't say the whole thing, did I? I said Rigsby CPA. That's it. That's all I can remember.
We're very limited as to what we can call ourselves, so that's the one that came out. But I've been in the accounting industry for 17 years and counting. I began in public accounting back in 2003. Did 4 years at a firm over in Durham, and after 4 years of tax seasons, it was time to go on to the next phase. The 70, 80, and 85-hour weeks were tough there. Great experience, though. I learned a lot, and still have a great relationship with the father-son partner over there. But I was hired away by a client after 4 years, and I spent 4 years as a controller of a company as an HVAC contractor. That's what they did. And that took us into 2008. And as you remember, things
vividly
kind of similar to where we are now, unfortunately.
Yeah. And
the construction industry kind of dried up, and the company went from a large company to a small company, and wasn't really room for a CFO and a controller. So to make a long story short, I had an opportunity to go into the nonprofit sector, and I spent 2 years there with a company that did great work in Durham. So that was a great experience as well. But I did 2 years there, and after that, I got the itch to go off on my own. So 7 years in counting, I've been providing bookkeeping and small accounting practice to small businesses here in the Raleigh area and beyond. So that kind of my career in a nutshell.
Wow. Lots of experience, and you worked in non-CPA firms as well, so you know what it's like to be in the kind of businesses you're helping. That makes you extra special. So why don't you also then, speaking of accounting, tell us, I'm sure the audience maybe get one or two things correct if I ask them what the heck you do. Why don't you just spill all the beans? Tell us more about what a bookkeeping accountant with CPA qualification does for a small business.
Sure. Well, to begin with, I am a licensed CPA, and people usually associate that with taxes. I've done taxes in the past, but I do not prepare them now. I do all the work that gets you to the end of the year to get you to the tax return. Yep. I'm involved in the monthly, quarterly, and year-end close for my clients. Most of my clients are at the size where they have somebody on staff that does the day-to-day work, the bill entry, the cutting the invoices, the writing the checks, and that kind of thing. But they need a little more horsepower accounting-wise when it comes to the monthly reconciliations. So that's where I come in, and I provide that oversight. And I touch the books on a monthly basis. I see the transactions going in and out. I get the bank statements, credit card statements, the payroll reports, and I make sure the books tie back to those statements. And through that process, it'll weed out transactions that are missing, transactions that are incorrect. And through that process, I can get the books completed. I can get them accurate, and my clients have information they can use in a timely manner. So that's the service that I can provide my clients. The CPA credential that you mentioned earlier, you don't have to be a CPA to provide these services. But I do think it's a valuable credential. Goodness knows I worked hard to get it, and I'm proud of it. And I'll never let it go. It's a long process. You have to have a certain level of education. In my case, I got my master's degree down in Greenville, East Carolina. Go Pirates! And then you have to you have to pass a pretty tough test, which requires a lot of preparation. So I managed to pass that, and I'll brag a little bit. I passed it on the first try. I'm very proud of that. And I'll also say, if I ever have to take it again, I might not be a CPA anymore. But I am very proud of that, and I do think it brings some credibility to the table that when people see that title.
Quite frankly, when I refer accounting professionals to people I try to help, I look, like I go to LinkedIn, or I look for that CPA after your name. And I am not one, but I really do appreciate what that means and what you had to go through to get it. It also means to the business owners you help that if you know pretty well what you're doing, and if you forgot something, you know how to go find out real quick, like that.
You summed it up very well. I think it does give my clients confidence that I might know a little something about it. Yeah, I agree.
One of the roles I imagine you're in fact, I know you're in, is it has to do with the relationship you have with a business owner, and that is some ongoing work culminating in a monthly event called a closing, and a discussion with the owner how he did that month and what he better watch out for. Take us through a little bit more detail than I just did. Tell us more about that relationship and why it's so important to the business owner that you're involved and what you're doing for him that he should appreciate.
Well, quick example, a client of mine, I was going through the process that you just described. And over time, you become familiar with the operation and you become familiar with the transactions that you normally see. And occasionally you'll see a transaction. I've never seen this vendor before. I've never seen this amount paid to this vendor before. This invoice that was cut seems awfully high. Things of this nature. And an incident last month, one of my clients, I brought it up to him. I said, haven't seen this vendor before, and it's a pretty decent amount of money. He said, well, you just paid for yourself. I wrote that check for too much. They invoiced me for too much. It was supposed to be $350, not $3,500. So
saved him a bunch of money.
That right there, made me feel good, and obviously made him feel like somebody's got his back.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of service I provide. Also, you can look for trends once you get familiar with a client and you have some historical data. You can know when revenues for a certain time of year or maybe not where they should be, or maybe they're doing extremely well. And often I'm consulted, is it a good time for me to buy a truck, or I'm asked, and again, I'm not a tax expert, but I do have a familiarization with it.
Mm-hmm.
People say, what would be the tax consequences if I were to do a certain transaction?
Yeah.
Many times I can answer it. If I can't, I know some very good tax accountants that I can consult with.
Yep.
But I usually have a general idea if it's a good idea or not. And it's just it's a monthly. I do have clients that I converse with on a weekly basis, but it's building up that rapport, building up that trust. As in any relationship, a business owner should have that type of relationship with their CPA bookkeeper.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, I happen to use QuickBooks.
Yeah.
I suppose you work with QuickBooks quite a lot. But some entrepreneurs say to me, well, I'm using QuickBooks. I could do this myself. And I smile and say, well, yes, you could. But you're going to be missing something.
Yeah, good chance.
Know-how is what, because you don't have it.
Well, QuickBooks is a great program, and most small businesses can use it. It's going to be a rare case that a small business needs something with a little more power under the hood. The one thing about QuickBooks is if you don't know what you're doing, QuickBooks will let you do it. So you can make a mess really fast. And I've seen that, and it's not because the person using it isn't smart or intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't necessarily understand accounting. And that's why people like me have jobs.
Yep.
But it's a great program. It's not terribly expensive. And most people, it's intuitive. You can do the basics with it. You can cut and print checks. You can enter the expenses. You can send out invoices.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, I've seen where people have expensed, vehicles. That's again, you look at a P&L and you see a $15,000 expense for a truck. Well, that belongs on the balance sheet.
Yes, sir.
Easy mistake to make, but QuickBooks will let you do that. The bigger programs for the larger businesses will not. So they don't have those. They don't have in place, those things to stop you from doing that. But yes, it's a great program, and they've come out with an online version that's
that's what I use.
Very different. Yeah, it's very different. QuickBooks Online. If you're a desktop user and you're considering switching, it's a very different program.
Right. So what the heck? Where'd all my buttons go?
Well, I like to say it's like going from an Android to an iPhone. And my wife and I, we go back and forth. She has an iPhone and I have an Android. I think Android's better, and she thinks iPhone's better. But it's a good analogy because you can do a lot of the same stuff, but it's all in a different place. But I do think QuickBooks is not necessarily phasing out the desktop version, but they are really pushing the subscription base. Some of the other ones out there I've seen, there's one called Zero. It's actually very good. I've had a client work with that in the past, and I was impressed with it. I've also run into another one called Zoho Books. So there are different ones out there. And
you're pretty safe if you use QuickBooks.
Whatever you're more comfortable with.
You're pretty safe if you use QuickBooks, though.
QuickBooks is pretty widely
used.
Yeah.
Back to taxes a minute. Something came into my brain as you were talking about that. I forgot to ask you earlier.
Sure.
And it's appropriate for what you just brought up. I know you don't do tax returns, but by God, you keep them on track or paying their taxes, those that have to be paid, and other obligations, that you get put in jail for, or your business gets closed down if you don't pay, like workman comp and that kind of stuff. You help them make sure they get that right too, right?
Oh yeah. Now, usually with and what you're talking about, most of my clients they have entities that are flow throughs, and part of that and what that means is the income that's generated by the business ends up being a line item on their 1040,
Yep.
and they're taxed on it at a personal rate,
Yep.
as opposed to doing as a corporate rate.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very important to pay estimated taxes on a quarterly basis. And generally, folks, and I'm not a tax preparer, so it's a good relation. It's a very good to have a relationship with your tax preparer and your bookkeeper, because that quarterly information is what you base your estimate off of that you pay. Now, at the end of the year, when your tax return is done,
Mm-hmm.
Your tax preparer will prepare vouchers for you if you're in an estimated situation. But what you don't want to happen is at the end of the year, you don't want to sit there owing this huge balance because you had a great year. Or on the other end of that is you don't want to have a bunch of money owed back to you because that's money you could have been using in your business all year long, but you're letting Uncle Sam have it. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely a balance there that you need to a line you need to toe, and communication with your tax person and with your bookkeeper will definitely help you do that correctly. The goal should be at the end of the year, you don't owe them anything and they don't owe you anything.
Well, I got another question, but I want to say to the people who are watching tonight, if you've got questions, go enter your questions there, and we'll cover them at the end. Certainly for those whose answers Chuck really hasn't covered yet. But back to the questions for you, Chuck.
Yes.
What I'm wondering is what you do is very well defined. There are regulations, there are accounting practices that guide what you do. So shouldn't be much of a mystery to anybody who brings on someone with your qualifications as a CPA, what they're going to get. And there are a lot of you that have that CPA at the end of your name. So for your firm, how do you differentiate yourself from all the rest of them that are at kind of your level of qualification? Why do they go to you and not them?
Well, that's a great question, Bill. And I'll be honest with you. Most of my business is generated through referrals. And most of those referrals have come from other CPAs, to be honest with you. And current clients that know somebody that needs my kind of service. So in many of the cases, the referral source is familiar with my work.
Yeah.
They know it's good work, and they're confident referring me to one of their clients.
Yeah.
And I think that differentiates me. But also, everybody's going to say they provide great service, and I'm going to tell you that too. And I'm not saying everybody doesn't, but I am going to tell you that I do. And
okay.
I'm not bragging.
So go ahead and do it.
But I'll give you an example. A couple months ago, a client of mine owns an apartment building, and he was in the process of doing a refi. And it was a big transaction, and it was getting down to the nitty-gritty to the end where everything was due by the lending institution. Mm-hmm. Well, they threw some curveballs at him at the last minute that required me getting involved. And when I found out, 5:30 the day before it was due.
Oh, wonderful!
So now this doesn't happen all the time. This is an exception, but it and I had plans that night that I couldn't get out of. So after I finished up my plans, 10 o'clock at night, I was in front of my laptop putting together what he needed.
Getting her done. Yep.
that's the kind of service that I take pride in, and that my clients can anticipate and expect.
I try to get this across to the younger entrepreneurs that in a services business like yours, particularly ones that have the professional requirements that yours does, that most of their business is going to be gotten by referral.
Yeah.
But if they're just starting out, they have to create a referral base.
Yeah.
Start creating it. That means from to me anyway, from customer number 1 through N, however many there are, you treat them like valuable clients.
Oh, absolutely.
Do the kind of thing you just said, way beyond the call of duty, burning the midnight oil to get something done for them that they were late on getting to you in the first place. It didn't friggin' matter. He was relying on you.
And that's the way that's how you have a long time client.
Yep.
And if you do that, it'll come back to you in spades, because that person will recommend you, and it just that's the way the world works. If you do right by your clients. So
after years and years of this, you've got a referral base that I would say would kill a horse. But it's really big. You can't eat it one bite, but it's something I'm sure you're proud of. That there's a lot of people you have helped, and they remember you.
I've been very fortunate, and I have some great relationships that I value, and cannot put enough value on that. Absolutely.
So we do have some questions coming in, but you had a shout out by Graham Van Rokel here, who
Graham.
You know him very well. He's your tax guy. So he says, great point about estimated taxes, Chuck.
And he would know.
Yeah. So,
he's a great tax preparer, and I highly recommend him.
So this is a question that's also coming up here. Some people know that you actually have gotten deeply into PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, and you know more than the average bear about it. How'd you get into that? And tell us how you're helping people get through that, because they still can apply, right? You told me that before. So they still might need some help.
I don't think a lot of people realize it, but that funding is still out there. There was a second round that was approved. And when it first came out, there was such a rush to get it that they ran out very quickly, and that was anticipated. But a lot of my clients had to go through that process, that application process. And as the program was pushed out, there was a need for it, and the government, and I'm not knocking what the government did.
Oh,
they had to get it out there.
Go ahead and do it if you want.
Yeah. Well, they had to get it out there, and it was a rush job, but it needed to be done. Part of that process was the bank system was overwhelmed. Incomplete information was given out before the program was really ready, and my clients, as well as me, were confused at the beginning. Yep. So, I've received a lot of calls from my clients and stepped them through filling out that application. It ended up not being as tough an application as first would be thought. A lot of it is based on old W-2s and 941s from the previous year. Mm-hmm. What we don't know about it yet is the forgiveness piece of it.
Oh, yeah. I got a question on that, too. Yeah, go ahead. Cover that.
Yeah. Well,
how's that going to work?
That's coming because it's an 8-week program that is forgivable, and it's based on FTEs, full-time employees. If you've maintained an FTE at the level you had prior to applying to the loan, you should receive a pretty high level of forgiveness. And there are various costs that qualify for forgiveness. W-2 wages is one. employee benefits is another. Those are considered payroll costs. And 75% of the loan has to be used for that.
Mm-hmm.
The other 25% can be used for rent, utilities, and interest payments on obligations that you have incurred before February 15th. So, so that's how you're allowed to spend your money for that loan and apply for forgiveness. The application is out there now for forgiveness. Came out a couple of days ago, but the banks have not received the guidance from the SBA as far as the process for submitting that. So, hopefully that won't be rushed. Not ready for prime time as far as the banks are concerned. I think they're going to take their time. The payments on the loans don't start until 7 months after the funding of the original loan.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the banks will need to be in such a hurry to get these forgiveness applications submitted. Now, I did see something that was interesting as well on the application is that the forgiveness application will have to be submitted by October.
Oh.
So I can see, much like a tax deadline, I can see a big rush deadline on that too.
Yeah. So it'll all be done by the end of this tax year? Probably.
Yes, it appears.
What's driving that?
Yeah. But I think it's a very valuable program. Several of my clients applied and obtained those loans, and it's going to help a lot of people. So I was glad to see it.
I got another question that relates to something you and I talked about before the broadcast, and that is this person is concerned that business owners are going to run out of money, particularly those that have opened late or they're opened at half speed, like restaurants and bars and stuff, half capacity. And their cash flow is not going to increase in cash flows, not going to be enough to make them cash flow positive. And they'll eventually run out of money. There's no more money to be had. There's no more PPPs. You can get lines of credit and stuff like that. But the nature of this question, they're worried about lots and lots of companies are suffering from this, and they're going to fail. My last two videos, for my 10 o'clock videos that I do, talked about this, that we're in danger of losing 40 to 45% of the businesses, small businesses in America, because they're going to run out of money and just can't get going again.
Yeah, it's tough out there. I have several clients that are in the restaurant industry. My goodness, what a time to be a restaurant owner. And just like you said, I mean, if you're not open for business, the bills don't go away. A lot of them don't.
Yep.
Maybe the payroll does, but the rent, the mortgages, the utilities, that's all there, and the loans and all that stuff still goes on. Some of these lenders are offering what's called forbearance, or they're letting you tag a couple of months onto the end of the loan. Mm-hmm. I've seen that as well.
Yep.
The PPP has helped, but again, that's an 8-week loan. And if you're a restaurant right now, and you can't even open up, a lot of restaurants, when they were conceived, were based on a certain capacity.
Yes.
To be able to operate and be profitable.
Right.
Well, if you're telling me I can't have but 50% capacity, is it worth it to open your doors?
I'm just going to run right out of money. Yep. Exactly right.
So it's tough. It's tough out there. The PPP has helped. There's also a disaster relief loan that's out there that the SBA does, and this one is more. This one is not forgivable, but it is. The terms are
low interest rate. You can pay for 30 years.
30-year payback at 3.75%. So
I'm working with one fellow that got one of them. Not a big amount of money, but it's saving his butt. Sure.
Now that loan is that's more like a loan than the
Yeah.
PPP.
Yeah.
The PPP can be forgiven. You have to go through a vetting process to get this SBA loan. They do a credit check, and they do check you out pretty thoroughly. Also, there are a lot of reporting requirements. Any of those loans over $2 million are going to require audits,
Yeah.
and audits are expensive, but it is out there. So that is something that a small business owner can look into. But as you mentioned, it's tough.
Well, I do have one final remark, and it's from some young lady named Jill Dean Rigsby. He says, I can vouch for how he jumps through hoops and taking care of his clients when needed. So she's a witness to what you do.
He is, and she's very patient.
I can tell. So I've kept you longer than I said I would. We're now over 30 minutes. I appreciate your patience.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. Well, I am having fun. I hope you are too.
Yes.
You've helped a lot, and I think with one final thought, what's your final thought for urging people to have professional help in managing their finances?
Well, most folks go into business because they see an opportunity. They're good at something, and they see an opportunity to do it on their own and make a good living, not having to work for somebody else. And what happens a lot of the time is they get started and they wear all the hats.
Yes.
And they don't necessarily have. It's not that they aren't intelligent. They just don't have the
training,
the knowledge base to do some of these tasks. And oftentimes accounting is one of them.
Yes.
So my recommendation is keep things simple. When you're just starting out, commingling, I see people commingling funds all the time, and that just makes things very difficult, especially at the end of the year when you're trying to dig through multiple checking accounts, trying to dig up expenses. Have one checking account, have one credit card. That'll really simplify your life.
Yep.
You can write your own checks, cut your own invoices, but have somebody give you some oversight. You'll really save yourself some time.
Yep.
At the end. And a bookkeeper's rate versus one of the big CPA firms' rate, you'll save yourself right there. Yeah. But my advice is go out there and get it, because business is out there. It's going to come back, and everything that was in place before COVID should come back and be in place once things open up. So I choose to be optimistic, and I believe that's going to be I believe we're going to get there.
Well, Chuck, thanks so much for being on the program with me tonight. I think people have learned a lot about the importance of what you do and learned a little bit extra things about the COVID-19 program. So that was an extra addition.
Yeah, and thank you, Bill. I've enjoyed our discussion. I appreciate this opportunity.
You're very welcome. Have a great evening. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Bill.
Bye-bye.